Hello, you're listening to the Creative Val podcast. This is a podcast where we help you get to your full creative potential. My name is Masha Tissa. So glad that you're able to join us today. I just want to appreciate everyone for giving the feedback on the previous recording called Don't Trust Your Feelings. And it's true, people feel inspired. So if you haven't listened to it, please do that. And I think we've come to a resolve that we do not want to trust our feelings. Our feelings can never be trusted at some point. We just have to walk on water, sometimes afraid. We have to just try to do things and understand that the storm will always be there. So thank you so much for listening and for giving in your feedback. Today's discussion is just a continuation of what we've been talking about. This week, we want to talk about a realization that I just got to, and still we have a reference from the Bible still. And it's just something that I realized that even as you run with a vision, as a vision bearer, there's a stage that you'll always go through. You'll always have that stage where you're thinking whether you should have made this decision or not. You're always doubting. For example, if you look at the example of walking on water, Peter walking on water. So Peter was walking on water. There are people on the boat. So the times as a vision bearer, you're always questioning, hey, should I have walked on this water? Or should I maybe have been on the boat? Or should I have not been on this boat at all? Sometimes you're always doubting. You're always at that point where you're still not decided whether this is exactly what you wanted to do. And I'd assume that will be the same for the disciples who are on the boat and not necessarily walking on water. They were like, okay, should I walk or should I not? They're always that undecided. And like we said, sometimes if you're a vision bearer, you choose to walk and not look behind, just always making a step forward. But we cannot ignore the fact that sometimes you always doubt yourself. Like when you want to say you want to be self-employed, you want to focus on building this company. And then all of a sudden you have those thoughts of, okay, maybe should I be looking for a job or should I be doing, like there's always something. And I think it always just goes from the point you're looking at for clarity. If you look at the clarity recording, the moment you get to a point of clarity, something always comes up to test your resolve. So you think you want to do this, and then just throughout you're like, hey, maybe I did the wrong decision. Or you look at your friends in campus. Everybody took a different route and you also took a different route. But now when you guys meet together, you're like, oh, maybe did I make the wrong decision? Am I in the right place or not? So I feel like that's a stage that a lot of vision bearers sometimes really do go through. And the only way we can be able to overcome that if we get to this final stage. Our topic for today's discussion is own it. Own it. Own it to mean own your vision. So we're just going to see what exactly that means. Today we want to look at the story of Jesus. And when you're looking at the story of Jesus, I want us to just understand what he came on earth to do. So the first time we see Jesus is when he's born. And then next we see him when he's 12 years old. And then from the time he's 12 years old, we see Jesus when he's now baptized and everything else. So ideally, he started his ministry at 30. And his ministry ended when he was 33. That's when he died. And then he had achieved so much and he ended up being the greatest man ever lived. Sometimes when you're looking at, there's so many things you can get to learn from this man. And we can't even exhaust it. But today we just want to look at the focus of the kind of focus Jesus had, the kind of determination he had, and the way he was able to achieve what he had come on earth to do. And that's what we want to look at today. So example is, if you look at Jesus chose his disciples. And even when he was dying, Peter, who is one of my favorite characters, Peter ended up denying him. People like Judas betrayed him for 30 pieces. The same people he had come to save, they crucified him. He was always at loggerheads with the Pharisees, the Sadducees. Every time he felt like they would come and arrest him earlier, he would always retreat to a different place and then come back when the tensions are a bit better. So if you look at Jesus, there's something that he possessed that I feel like all of us as vision bearers need to have. What is this thing? I feel like it's grit. There's a time when Safaricom was having a campaign. Was it the Blaze campaign? And grit, they were talking about it as greatness requires internal toughness. And for me, what stands out there is the toughness. There's a toughness that you as a vision bearer need to have that is very different from someone else. There is a certain level of focus and decision you should have as a person for you to get to a certain place. Now, ideally, Jesus was preparing himself for this ministry. From 12 years old to 30, we've not seen him do anything, so we don't know what happened. However, you'd assume that is during the preparation stage. By the time he showed up, when he's being baptized and everything else, I feel like Jesus had already come to a level of decision. This is what I'm going to do. And he had already decided. So he also had a strategy around it, choosing disciples, teaching people, building. There's a lot he had to do on earth. And I feel like he accomplished all that. So what does that mean? It means that you as a vision bearer, you need to have some toughness in you that is also very uncommon. That even when people betray you, when things like Corona come, they just mess up your whole idea. It doesn't, of course, it will hurt you and everything else, but it doesn't derail you from the main focus. Jesus, even when people like Peter denied him, he didn't hold it against him. In fact, he's the one who told him, you know what, you're going to deny me. Peter was like, hey, Jesus, me can't deny you. How can I deny you? But eventually he denied Jesus, but Jesus didn't hold it against him. He still was able to forgive him. So sometimes even as a vision bearer, people around you will just come and not do things the way you want them to do. They will fail you, but there's that toughness you need to have as a person that will make you storm through all these different challenges that you come through. But you see, it all comes with decision, making a decision and owning it. If you've decided this is what I want to focus on my writing business, I want to focus on my this business, you decide to choose your pain. I remember a recording we had with Lillian Warutere, still on the podcast. You can go check it out. She's a learning designer, and she said she's also learned to pick her pain. For example, it's not after campus the way everybody does their own thing. If you've chosen to go the entrepreneurial route, choose that pain and go with it. If you want to go the job, whatever route you want to go, choose it, decide, and just flow with it. So whatever challenges you face there, you won't get to that point of doubting, hey, have I made the right decision? Have I not? And even when you're talking about owning it, is owning even the wrong decisions you've made. Because sometimes as people, we don't always make right decisions. There are times when you make really wrong decisions. Because even as people, there are people that the times that we make some really wrong decisions. So you get to own them and say, you know what? I didn't do this job well. So you own your mistakes and you move ahead. Like, always be the person who is accepting of your mistakes. Like, there's competition. My product may not be good enough. That's why people are getting the job. So when other people get jobs that maybe I wanted, I won't necessarily feel so bad and like, hey, people don't like my I'll be about innovating and making sure I have a good product so that next time when clients are looking for something, they'll choose to look for me. See, that's a toughness that you have that not everybody actually gets to have. So my encouragement to all of you is to make sure we get to that space where we are developing that kind of toughness. So that we are just tough enough and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this regardless of what. We really have to ensure that we get to that space as people and ensure that we are moving to the next level. Because if you don't do that, we are not going to move. So even these things that come with the storm, the doubt, the fear, the everything else, we have this toughness. You're like, yes, I will doubt, but I won't trust those feelings because you're always moving ahead. That's why we'll be able to do some daring things like walking on water, some daring things like venturing into new opportunities that we have no idea of because we've developed that kind of toughness. So the question becomes, how do we develop this kind of toughness? For me, I don't necessarily have a particular answer, but I feel like it really comes with time and just constantly talking to yourself and affirming yourself and just like always looking at the vision, always looking at the goal. Regardless of what comes your way, you've already gotten to that place of deciding and saying, you know what? Whatever happens, I have no other option. Because most of the times we get to that space of indecision because we know we have our plan B. So may your vision be your only plan A. Don't have another plan B. That means regardless of what happens, you're just going to innovate around the whole place in terms of the implementation. But there's no other, this is what you are planning to achieve. So at least if you know that you have no other plan, you will decide and say, you know what, I'm just going to try everything. I'm going to do whatever it is you have because I have no other plan B. This vision or the purpose that have been brought on earth to do has to happen. There's no excuse whatsoever. You can't say it's your child, you can't say it's your husband, you can't say it's your siblings, you can't say it's your parents that may have stopped you, or illness or whatever. Whatever you have come on this earth to do, whatever purpose you have to fulfill, whatever vision it is that you'd want to really see come forth, nothing will really stop you from achieving that vision because you have decided and you have no other plan. So just like Jesus did not have any other plan, he took the vision, he owned it. People are telling him, hey, Jesus, you won't die. He was like, you know what? Get thee behind me, Satan. I'm going to die. I know this is what I've called on this earth to do. May not necessarily be a popular thing, may not be something people like, may not be something I also like myself, because Jesus felt the pain. It's not like if it were up to him, he would not have taken up that responsibility because he was going to feel the pain. He felt the pain. He was literally crucified on the cross. That was just so bad. He felt the betrayal. He felt the denial. But he had owned the vision to a point that even the betrayal and the denial, there's a time when he said, God, do not hold this sin against them. Like he'd even gotten to a place where he's just forgiving people. He's not feeling bad because people have betrayed him. People have trolled him. Even you as a person, like you should get to that point where you're not feeling bad because people have done this and this and this. And that can only be a quality, a grit. That can only be toughness that develops over time. The toughness that knows, that understands the vision, that has clarity of a vision. Toughness that doesn't trust the feelings. Toughness that is focused and is very clear on what they had come on the earth to do, and they has decided, and there's no other plan. There's no plan B. That's your only plan A, and you have to do all it takes to ensure that it gets to a level that you really were supposed to push it. So thank you so much for listening. That's all we had for today. I just hope that you were able to be encouraged and that you look at your vision and get to a point where you decide and say, you're not doubting and saying, hey, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. You're just getting to a point and say, you know what, this is what I've decided to do. So regardless of whether it's a good or bad decision, I'm going to own my mistakes. I'm going to own my successes, own my failures, talk about it. Say, you know what, I do this. I made a mistake over here. By also owning up to your mistakes is also a good stage of growing. So own up to your mistakes, own up to your failures, and just know that eventually when you have no plan and you own your vision, that's the only way we're able to walk on this water. And that's the only way we're able to run with the vision effectively. And we have a higher chance of achieving the vision. So thank you for listening. I do hope to hear from you, your feedback. Until next time, bye.